While Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi has congratulated Hamas for what he's described as a victory.
Speaking during a cabinet meeting in Tehran, Raisi said the attack was a manifestation of resistance.
یک جلوه‌ای از مقاومت و ایستادگی در مقابل رژیم پوشالی صهیونیستی که حقیقتاً این پیروزی رو باید به مردم فلسطین، به مجاهدین فلسطینی، به همه گروه‌های فلسطینی و به امت اسلامی تبریک گفت.
So is there a place for neutrality during geopolitical conflicts? I'm joined now by Andre Vlok, who is a conflict dispute specialist. Good evening to you, Andre. Thank you so much for your time. I think we have to have this conversation by first acknowledging the fact that the world, of course, is at war, more so than we have been over the last 5 years. The escalation of conflict is something that has caused quite a bit of alarm.
Hello, Kathy. Yeah, and in certain respects, we are more at war, and there are some new conflicts, some very modern ones, and old ones such as this one.
When we talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's one of those that, as we have seen with Russia-Ukraine, it almost forces individuals to pick a side, particularly the international community. Often there seems to be this pressure that people must publicly declare which side they stand with and then go on to justify why.
That's one of the new developments in conflict that we see, not just with this conflict, but with even interpersonal conflicts and so on. We see it with the political scene in America. We see it with our South African conflicts. That need for people to belong, that need for people to pick a side, and that's normal. It's human nature to pick a side and to not be neutral. There are certain conflicts that, you know, it's arguable whether we should be neutral at all. But the problem with a lot of these modern conflicts, and we see it again on our screens now with the Palestine-Israel conflict, is that this identity conflict, this in-group, out-group dynamic is being abused. You're no longer allowed to be neutral. You have to pick a side. It's expected of you. Your group would, in direct or indirect ways, demand that you belong to a certain correct way of seeing a conflict. And that is making proper dissent, healthy debate, such as we need in the Middle East, very difficult, and it needs a very new approach to age-old conflicts such as this.
Let's talk about the opportunity cost of this lack of neutrality, because again, when we talk about people picking sides, often, you know, the famous quotes such as, if you're quiet during times of injustice, you know, then you are equally guilty of some of those injustices that have committed. And so it really is sort of the moral obligation that often seems to be tugged at there. And that's, I think, part of the reason why people speak up, because it's made to seem that ethically it's wrong to keep quiet. How do we navigate that tension, really?
I've just written an article on our options, and it really is options. Let's not fall into the same trap and insist on that people have a specific approach to neutrality. That's part of the problem. Of course, we can pick sides. A conflict such as the Middle Eastern one, Israel and Palestine as an example, it pulls us in. It speaks to our humanity, and picking a side is very normal and quite in order, if it is done voluntarily. Neutrality needs to be polished. It needs to return to its original power as a conflict dynamic. We've lost that power of proper debate, of allowing others to disagree with us, of allowing people in our group to dissent and ask certain questions. And that is creating a tremendous knock-on effect with conflicts, both personal ones. We see it all over social media. We see it in the Middle East. We see it in Ukraine. This right way, it's done nearly on religious grounds, where this is the way you have to believe, this is the things you have to say, this is the things you have to conform to. And then there is, in my article, I deal with a wonderful alternative, which I use in my own work. It's a phrase coined by an expert called Kenneth Cloak. He calls it omnipartiality, where we're not neutral. Neutrality is often, and quite rightly, seen as a cold approach to conflicts. The Palestine conflict, for example, if you're neutral, if you're seen as neutral, it's seen as a cold, aloof. You're not involved in this, and that has its own problems in conflict. But an approach of omnipartiality is a form of neutrality where that person, let's say a judge or a mediator involved in such a conflict, is not neutral in the proper sense of the word, but you equally invested in good conflict outcomes for all the parties. That is a new form of neutrality, which I think conflict such as this really requires.
Just to wrap it up, Andre, I want you to talk to us about, what you also describe as sort of the transformational value of neutrality, particularly in situations of conflict, and the opportunity and even the pathway that neutrality can create out of those conflicts.
If we return to, let's say, the Israel-Palestine conflict and use that as a canvas to sketch that on, if insults, if all of these, I stand with X, Y, I stand with Y, insults and threats, they are simply not going to work. And I'm not taking your right away to have those views, but certainly this is a conflict with cycles, with spirals. We can see it. If nothing changes, we're going to have this discussion a year from now, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, just as we've had it in the 70s and the 40s and the 80s. This conflict needs to change, and a new and fresh approach to neutrality will allow other parties, the parties themselves, number one, and those involved, the third parties, those assisting, those helping, those making statements such as we heard just before our conversation. Those are the things that need to be done. Neutrality needs a new face. It needs new dynamics and a new energy, not just this cold, dispassionate, I'm here to listen to you. Neutrality is an active approach to conflict. It should be. It's not, but it should be.
All right. Andre Vlok is a conflict dispute specialist. Thanks for joining us tonight, Andre.